everybody, to Memoir Church. I'm so excited that you're here. It's the first Sunday of every month, and it's just a lovely program. If you love being read to and you love people's stories, you've come to the right place. Um, I'm so thrilled to have Valerie here. It's so exciting. We knew each other a long time ago. Welcome, 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 one and all. And let's see, I am going to highlight us, Valerie, and we're going to get started. We open the program by having a little bit of a conversation about Valerie and her work and what she's doing today is her upcoming memoir, and I just love being in the juice with her as she explores it. And so Valerie, I just love you have a theater background, and so we connected on that level as well. But I really love that you've come to this you've come to writing a memoir. Do you want to tell us how this came about?
There was a time in one of my very early classes when I started, well, I talk about where the title came from in the first piece, so I'll leave that there. But I retired, and so I thought, I'm retired, and being the drama director at an all-boys Catholic high school has some stories. So I'm starting to put them together right now. It kind of feels like a really big alphabet jigsaw puzzle. I'm not exactly sure where this piece is going. Maybe I have a little bit of the outside border, but all the rest of them are like, yeah, I'm a little bit on a break from it right now, gaining some quiet inspiration.
So, I love it.
Yeah, and I have the time, so why not?
Well, but the other thing too is that you have the time, but not everyone chooses to write their memoir. So what is it that drew you in about it expressly, that you thought, I need to get this down on the page? And because it's no small thing. It takes a lot of discipline. And so what made you drill down on that?
I don't even remember what it was, but I just thought, I've been through a lot of things recently in the last 5 years or so in my life that had me doing different things that I hadn't necessarily. I have a bug that wants to
join in.
Yeah. And so it was kind of one of those things like, well, I know how to write, I think. And I think I was going to go to Bali. And I was thinking like the ocean front in Bali. Ooh, I'll be all inspired. And then I decided not to go because of a bunch of other stuff. And then my friend Zachary, who's here, said, hey, I know this writing class. So I took the writing class, and that kind of helped because it was a daily discipline. And I just kind of started barfing stories, and then I have a list
barfing stories.
I have a list of like future writes, things that I want to write in the future, little memories from the classroom and all of that type of stuff. And boys are really funny to teach.
I am going to let you have the floor, the screen, and read from your piece every 3 seconds the last lesson, tales, trials, and titillations of my year as a drama director at that all-boys high school in San Francisco. And take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everybody for being here and listening. All right, there's 4 things I'm reading from. They're not necessarily in the order that they would come in the book, but the first one is called Every 3 Seconds. The memoir title, Every 3 Seconds, was realized a few years into my tenure at that all-boys Catholic high school in San Francisco. It was the only job I ever got from looking in the San Francisco Chronicle want ads. I landed the job in 2 interviews, and after the first interview, I knew I got the job. How did I know I got the job? I don't know. I just know. I just knew, Sometimes you just know. I'd never taught acting to a bunch of teenage boys at a Catholic high school. All at once, it was as if the theater was a zoo and my roster of students was a bunch of horny monkeys with no interest in acting. Monkeys they were, or more like squirrels. Have you ever watched the behavior of squirrels playing, the way they banter around and tease each other, then wham, they're off in a different direction? Yeah, squirrels. In my first semester, I was perplexed and frustrated, to say the least. As an acting teacher, I knew what I was doing. As a zookeeper caring for smart-ass monkey squirrels, no. I remember the day when that big man on campus best friend duo pushed and pushed and pushed me to the bullied brink. I left the theater defeated and pissed as hell, so I decided then and there that during Christmas break, I would secretly ask Santa for balls because I knew that was what it was going to take to survive the zoo. I don't have a penis, but I do have balls, so don't fuck with me, is what I wanted to say after I returned from Christmas break. But it was a Catholic school after all, and as the teacher, I was a role model. Saying don't fuck with me probably wouldn't be a very good idea. Santa's make-believe magic did the trick, however, and the following semester was much easier. Systems fell into place and the zoo was under control. I gave myself 5 years. 5 years, like the normal business model of a startup, right? If we can make it within the first 5 years, we'll make it. 22 years later, I retired, and that's when I wrote this memoir called Every 3 Seconds. I came up with that title because early on, I noticed that they thought of their penises constantly, those boys. They drew penises on anything they could get their squirrely little hands on. They farted, they burped, they hit each other in the groin. They were gross, smelly little beings, and their antics were off the chart as they found any excuse to penis their way into the conversation. After a couple years of teaching those pubescent penis monger belching fartso squirrels, I read an article about how the average male thinks about sex every 7 seconds, which doesn't slip off your tongue as nicely as every 3 seconds, I think. And anyway, that's men. We're talking about pubescent penis monger belching fartso squirrely boys. There's a difference. And in their defense, high school boys are experiencing all sorts of changes to their male anatomy. It's like that penis of theirs is an entirely different creature with a mind of its own. The proverbial 2 heads and 1 brain syndrome. I witnessed many a high school lad who was obviously just getting to know his penis. It's an easy one to catch because they're strangely compelled to draw Mr. Stiffy on every single surface available to them. At first, it drove me absolutely and impatiently bonkers. Eventually, I researched how to be a better teacher of all boys, and through trial and error, learned things like boys are visual learners. Boys like competition. Boys appreciate honesty if they trust you. Boys need to have instructions repeated 3, 4, and sometimes 5 times with wait time in between, because boys could be thinking of myriad other things during your first and second instruction. After I learned these tricks of the all-boy trade, it was easier to accept them for what and who they are. And anyway, it was rather endearing teaching boys. I mean, in their defense, it can't be easy having a body part do uncontrollable things every 3 seconds as if trying to have a one-on-one conversation. Okay. Next one is called Looking for Jesus. It was March 2002 at that all-boys Catholic school. We were in tech for the second musical I had ever directed, and Godspell was 3 days from opening night. I was in my theater classroom teaching the pre-lunch session of Intro to Acting when the then Dean of Men interrupted my class to ask if he could speak to me privately. I requested that the class talk amongst themselves and that I would be right back. The dean motioned me to the house left pit and proceeded to share news that would greatly affect the trajectory of the next 3 days. As the dean reported it, the actor playing the lead in the musical had been suspended.
Oh.
Jesus had been suspended. Our star quarterback got himself benched right before the playoffs, and I had no understudy. My reaction came in slow motion and my hands contorted to match the expression on my face. I couldn't believe what I heard. We lost our Jesus and there was nothing I could do about it. I pleaded several times, but we open in 3 days. What am I going to do? I can't replace the part in 3 days. Side note, you may wonder why the actor playing Jesus got himself suspended, as in, what did Jesus do to get suspended? I understand your curiosity. Jesus was caught smoking pot in an elementary classroom with his friend whose dad was the school custodian. The proverbial teenage wrong place, wrong time, wrong choice scenario due to disconnected frontal lobes where the phenomenon of logic is missing in action. At lunchtime, I walked into the cafeteria on an air of disbelief. I strolled the circumference of the entire cafeteria, figuring out what I was going to do and who was going to play Jesus. Once I made the full circle, I leaned against the wall at the South Bar area, looking, thinking, silent, still. A student approached and said, "Hi, Miss O. Miss O, are you okay? What are you doing?" The word bubble hovering over my head was probably a dead giveaway. I answered in the only honest and urgently calm way I knew how. "I'm looking for Jesus." Just then, gods of the theater answered my plea, and I spied the actor who played the lead in our fall play. He had an audition for the musical, claiming he wasn't much of a song and dance man. I accosted him with a brief hello, wrapped my arm in his, and led us tandem out of the cafeteria. As we approached the theater, I asked him if he would play Jesus and explained the crazy circumstances before us. I said he would have to call his mom and ask her to let him play Jesus. I said he would need to get out of class right now to rehearse on stage. "Yes, I do. Yes, I will. This is crazy." Boom, we have a Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. I punched in the phone extension to my choreographer who worked in the finance office and told her what happened. She phoned the dean and said, "We have our Jesus and we need to have him excused from the rest of his classes." And then she joined us on stage to start rehearsing. It was all rather surreal at the time, but we didn't have much time to think about it because, well, the show must go on. We knew we had to use the script, so we navigated that hurdle by cutting off the margins. I went to the dungeon for some leather-like material and fashioned the script into a book. We added a line at the beginning of the play, "My father gave me this book and I am going to teach you his lessons." It was all going well with blocking and choreography after we switched a couple songs around. The cast wasn't happy with my choice, but that didn't concern me. The mother of the suspended actor wasn't happy with me, but that didn't concern me. Nothing concerned me more than making sure that Jesus tried not to get worried or try not to turn on to problems that upset him. Everything was all right. Then, 2 days later, the show opened because the show must go on, and it did. Except for those in the company, no one would have known that the Jesus on stage performed a miracle in 3 days.
Oh, the joy of high school theater directing.
Yes. All right, this one is called "One Flew East, One Flew West, I Flew South." In June 2005, I was in Southern California with my family to celebrate my sister's 50th surprise birthday party. There was a lot of planning, and we arranged for her and Steve to go to Hawaii, the place where she was born and hadn't been back to. Turns out it's the same hospital that Barack Obama was born. Small world. Anywho, sometime before her party, my father was diagnosed with a brain tumor, same thing that killed his mother in 1978. The party was a success, and it was good to see so many people celebrating Deb. Soon after was the last Father's Day I ever got to celebrate with my father, because on June 29th, 2005, he had a stroke. For 3 months, while I was simultaneously directing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with a bunch of teenagers in San Francisco, I went back and forth to Southern California to visit my father at that smelly, stinky, skilled nursing facility we found. Each time I took with me the hope against hope that he would come back to his former self. To no avail. I stayed in his townhouse in Stanton and remember asking him before the stroke if he had any guns in the house. As a policeman all my life, I knew he had guns and have fond memories of sitting at the kitchen table and watching him clean his service revolver. Do I have any guns? Of course I have guns. Then I asked him if they were loaded, and he said, what good is a gun if it's not loaded? Then I said, if he knew where they all were, and he said, not all of them, no. And then I said, what good is a loaded gun if you don't know where it is, Dad? Through the course of my time staying at his house, both before and after his stroke and death, I found 8 loaded guns. They were in all of the usual predictable places, above the refrigerator, in the hall closet, under the mattress. And each and every time I found a gun, I called my one and only older brother, Danny, I found another one. Danny was dealing with his own health issues, so it was double the reason to fly south. His chemo treatments had him on and off again with low energy, but his spirit was always Danny's spirit and the usual Reardon half-full optimistic outlook. He'd say, okay, put that one aside too, and I'll get them all when you find them all. 3 months later, I was back in the theater with the Cuckoo's Nest teens, and at a little after 5:30 on September 26, 2005, my sister called me. I remember exactly where I was when I took the call in the theater, and when I picked up, I knew why she was calling. Lucky her. She got to see him take his last breath. Our big, strong father was gone. I took a breath and did exactly what I know he would have wanted me to do. I went back to the stage and continued rehearsal without missing a beat. He was dead, after all. There wasn't anything I could do for him any longer except celebrate his life. 2 hours later, when rehearsal was over, I told the cast that my father had died. They knew it was imminent due to all the times I had already flown south during our rehearsal process. What followed was one of the most delightful gifts and mature actions I had experienced from the teens entrusted to my teaching, and all of it in a strange sort of slow motion. They formed a circle on stage and found a candle to light. Then they went around the circle, and each of them said something about my father and I, such as, thank you, God, for Miss O's father and giving Miss O as our teacher. Quiet tears fell onto the dark stage, and all at once those goofy, cuckoo, hormonal minions became their teacher's teacher and protector. I dedicated Cuckoo's Nest to my father and created a perpetual trophy called the Chuck Reardon Most Adventurous Award. He's the man who was a frugal Irish provider, homicide detective, churchman, loving husband, father, a brother, uncle, grandfather, a softball player, and a sailor. When he retired, he sailed around the world for 2 years on a 46-foot sailboat christened Cornucopia. Yes, indeed, my father had an abundant supply of goodness and adventure. 2 years later, my brother died after a too-long journey with recurring cancer, March 27th, 2007. It's a story for another time. 2 years later, my mother died after a short journey with ovarian cancer, July 3rd, 2009. That's a story for another time. 1 year later, my stepfather died of, what was it? Eating too much chocolate to drown his sorrow after my mother expired? I don't remember the cause of his death. September 18th, 2010. In 5 years, I lost 4 dear family members. My father started it off, and I remember feeling like I was the first little girl in the world who lost her father. I cried a lot. A lot. Did I say I cried a lot? I did. The first tattoo I got was because my father died. Permanence on my ankle in the shape of a shamrock. I got through it, and maybe I got over it, but did I need to? I do know that I became a really good sympathy card writer because I received so many in those 5 years. In truth, you never really get over the death of a loved one because they remain in your thoughts and memories and heart on the daily. every single day. And this last one is called, am I okay with time, Suze?
You're great with time.
Good. This last one is called Say Goodbye to Your Teacher and might be the final chapter of the memoir. Who knows? I taught the 7 vocal elements of storytelling to every single class I ever taught at that all-boys Catholic high school and quizzed the students over and over and over again until they left my class with those elements in their back pocket. The elements are listed in the order I taught them, and I'll say them to recall easier for the quiz. Yes, I'm talking to you. There is a quiz. 3 inflections, upward, downward, and sustained, 2 Cs, character, voice, and caesura, and 2 alterations in rate of utterance and volume. One day, early in my tenure, mid-semester, I dismissed the boys to lunch and watched the entire herd bolt out of their cushy red seats without saying a word. I was left feeling alone and lonely in what quickly became an orchestra pity party. I thought of the many ballet and acting classes I had taken with master teachers. At the end of each session, when that master teacher dismissed us, we simultaneously stood up and applauded out of appreciation and respect. The next day, I mentioned this memory to my class, yet told them that I was not looking for applause. Instead, I was asking for an acknowledgement of goodbye after I dismissed them to lunch and reminding them that the bell does not dismiss them to lunch. I do. Gentlemen, there's 2 minutes until the bell rings and you will go to lunch when I dismiss you. Got it? Yes, miss. So quickly, there's 3 inflections. What are they? There's upward inflection and downward inflection. And what's the third one? Sustained inflection. It's mid-semester. They know them inside and out. That's right. Now, you're going to say them again. And this time, you're going to say it with a sustained inflection. Ready? Go. Sustained inflection. A sustained inflection is when the last couple of syllables remain the same pitch, as in, say goodbye to your teacher. Good job, gentlemen. So, starting with today's dismissal, in just a second, I will utilize a sustained inflection and alteration in volume when I say goodbye to your teacher. Then, with a booming command in my voice, I say, whilst hitting my consonants carefully, and when I do that, you will say goodbye to me all at the same time and however you want, so I know that you are here and you took the class and you know that I am a human being who needs to be acknowledged. Got it? Mumble mixed faces from hungry boys are frightening. I knew they got it and that I was pushing my luck as the seconds passed. Okay, look over your lines for open scene number 3, gentlemen, and say goodbye to your teacher. Their cacophonous comeback started a long tradition as the hungry herd headed to the cafeteria. Some weeks later, I noticed that Block 2 class of mostly energetic senior athletes were whispering while I was preparing to take roll. Side note, roll call in Ms. O's class wasn't just regular roll call, don't you know? There is no here in this class, gentlemen, I would command. The roll call regime was that I would call out their name and they had to respond loud, clear, creative, and energetic. They could say whatever they wanted within good taste and time limit to portray how they were feeling that very minute. Oh, you want an example? Fine. Me, John A. Good morning, Miss O. Say hello to your student. Braxton B. Holla at your boy, Miss O. Harry C. Miss O, can I go to the bathroom, please? Like right now, please. Raphael D. Miss O, can I talk to you after class? I'm having girlfriend issues. End of roll call. Side note, thank you. We're working on open scene number 3. It's 3 times as long as the other 2. And so I remind them that learning lines is a muscle, like lifting weights. When you lift weights, it works the muscles in your body, and the more you lift, the stronger your muscle becomes, right? We are in agreement. And the more you lift, the easier it becomes because you get in a rhythm and your body craves it. Same thing is true when you learn lines. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. You can also use clues in the lines themselves to help learn them. I asked them to get out their script for open scene number 3, and then I wait because that's what it takes. Me. Gentlemen, I like helping actors run lines. I don't know why, I always have. Notice in open scene here. Gentlemen, look at your script. Look and see how the last letter of the first line is an S and the first letter of the response line is an S. While you're learning the lines, you can remember them that way. That's your homework as an actor. So is daydreaming. When you go home tonight, I want you to daydream on this character you're playing in open scene number 3. He's you, and he's not you, right? So your lines will get easier to learn when you rehearse them more, and then you realize that your character has a reason to speak those lines. The boys are all heads down looking at their scripts, and good for them. Out of the blue, Raphael raises his hand and asks me about Romeo and Juliet's relationship. Maybe Raphael was feeling a little bit Romeo with his girlfriend issues, so I indulged his query. Because we're on an 85-minute block schedule, I can allow for right turn indulgences when there's a teaching moment involved. I speak of how much I like to use Romeo and Juliet in class, for how relatable it is to teens. My passion accelerates, and I intentionally utilize those 7 vocal elements of storytelling as my hook. Think about it, gentlemen. Romeo is your age. He's 16, and Juliet is 14. Her age doesn't even matter to you because it's Verona, and because she's beautiful, and because she doth teach the torches to burn bright. Speaking of, it's really hot in Verona come Lammas-tide, which is August. I want you to imagine that you are Romeo. Imagine. This is what acting is. It's imagining and believing. It's hot out, Romeo. You're hot and horny, and you have on tights on your hairy legs, and you're a bored teenage boy in the summer, and you're a lover who's simply looking to get laid. Then this illiterate servant comes up to you and your cousin on the street, and he asks you to read the invitation to a party happening tonight. Later on, you and your buddies decide to crash the masked party at the house of Capulet. You recall that just this morning, you heard your parents talking shit again about the Capulets because you, dear Romeo, are a Montague. And here in Verona, where we lay our scene, everyone knows who the Capulets and Montagues are and how they're both alike in dignity. Everyone also knows that you, the Montagues, and the Capulets have this ancient grudge about who the hell knows what that's breaking with new mutiny. And by now, my hands are speaking Shakespearean ASL to help move the story along. The boys are intent as I cross from the pit up the house-less stairs to the stage. I go on and on and on about the story and how the star-crossed lovers take their life and with their death bury their parents' strife. It's nothing to joke about, actually, teen suicide. Somehow Shakespeare made it beautiful and romantic, and yet ultimately very sad when you stop to think about it. I tell the story in my own unorthodox way and remind the class that Shakespeare wrote a spoiler in the prologue. The entire story is told in the 14-line sonnet in the prologue. And at the end of the play, the star-crossed lovers are dead in the Capulet tomb as the prince suggests that all are punished. And you know what? That would be my dream, gentlemen, for my own death. Imagine that I'm here on this beautiful stage in this beautiful theater. I'm doing what I love and lecturing passionately about Romeo and Juliet to a class of amazing students who are intent and listening to their teacher. And then, all of a sudden, I have a massive coronary and I'm dead by the time I hit the deck of the stage. I acted out, but only momentarily, lest Raphael shits his pants and runs to the administration. Then I lean up on one elbow and look straight out at those beautiful boys and say, "Say goodbye to your teacher." Okay. I was acting, gentlemen. I'm sorry, but it's really what I wish. I saw my father, who was a homicide detective, in a blue diaper after his stroke. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go. I just want to go quick and be done with it. The bell rings. They know they need to wait to be dismissed. And then Braxton gives the quiet command. Simultaneously, the entire class stands up and applauds their teacher out of appreciation and respect. She almost blushes, then puts her hands up to her heart, unable to speak for a brief moment. Oh, you remembered. Thank you. Oh, the applause dies a peaceful death, and they sit ready to listen to what their teacher lady has to say. You listened. You really do know how to be gentlemen. I don't care what anybody says. You get it. Now, remember to rehearse your lines and daydream tonight. It's your job as an actor, gentlemen. Never stop daydreaming. You are dismissed. And say goodbye to your teacher.
Lovely. Thank you, Valerie.
Lovely.
So gorgeous.